more games and set an example for little kids.
Being a senior is pretty bittersweet that the program is just getting together and I'm about to leave, but I'm happy it got together. Coach means a lot to me. She is actually my NOAC advisor, so I be in her office a lot.
Miss Crenshaw, she makes sure I make it to individual workouts, things I need help with to be better.
She set up some team bonding for us. We do a lot of stuff on and off the court. I do enjoy playing against East since they are our rivals.
I have fun playing against Kennedy from Centennial, Kayla from Centennial, Layla from International.
For college, I would like to study stenography. College coaches should recruit me because I feel like I'm a good leader, I'm a good listener, and I have good discipline, and I can push myself.
She's always going to put 110% into whatever it is that she does. So a lot of the times whenever coaches are looking for that one player, that spark, Tamaya Harrington would be that person. I cannot wait to see the young woman that she's going to become.
I just want to do photography and still do basketball. College coaches should recruit me because I put all the work in. I'm very humble. I could make buckets, and I like to share the ball and communicate.
College coaches should recruit Christiana Towns because of her work ethic, the ability that she has, which is natural, and on top of that, she's very coachable. It's something different whenever you have someone to step on the court that has an athletic ability, that has a game that is different than a lot of players that do play the game, and you can still teach them something.
My name is William Stinchcombe, and I've been with the Columbus City Schools for 23 years.
My name is Mr. Dorsey Birdsong, and I'm a safety and security specialist.
My name is Anita Roman, and I am a Columbus City Schools bus driver.
My name is Samuel Gonzalez. I'm a food service manager currently at Briggs High School.
I know that if I'm not there every day and on time, that student may not have a ride to school. And that weighs on me heavily. And I take pride in knowing that my students can set their clock on me. I'm always, it takes a lot for me not to come to work. It's important to come to work every day, be on time, because we may be the only way that student gets to school.
Seeing the kids years later and having them come up to me and say how thankful and grateful they were and happy that, I kept them safe in the district and, that I can't retire or leave the district until, their kids graduate.
This was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I didn't expect to live for this, but I love being part of the Columbus City School as a family. I just think because the building represents our districts, for me to see how clean the building is, I could take pride in my effort, and to put the cleaning and the organizing of the building, it just makes me feel a level of pride.
Peaceful mind can accomplish a lot of things. And when a student is hungry, their mind is oftentimes on what the next meal is going to be. In an indirect way, we affect the students in the kitchen. They can accomplish what they have to in the classroom. And for them to accomplish that, oftentimes that's going to better their situation for themselves, their family, and their community. So in a sense, helping the student in an indirect manner with the food is something that I really enjoy.
Columbus, Ohio has so much to offer our youth. The growth you can obtain from being a part of this district is huge. There is such diversity and learning experience happening throughout our K-12 buildings.
I love to see the excitement in the kids' faces when they know they can start school the very next day. So it's exciting for the families. So I think it's very impactful because it gives them that first start to, learning and growing.
I've been working with kids all my life. Coming here, meeting the students, the relationships that I've built over the years is just phenomenal. I'm seeing students, still see students to this day that thank me. Just, thanks for everything you've done. Thanks for helping provide a safe learning environment. Thank you for the talks, and they're really appreciative.
The district provides training throughout the school year and a lot of information that's constantly updated, and it's always available to us. So that's very helpful in being able to, provide the best service to, our students and parents. The diversity in Columbus and inclusion, it's unlike any other place, really. There's so many different cultures and you come in contact with just on a daily basis, with our students and parents and teachers.
I've really enjoyed the last few years working here at CCS. It's got great benefits, the people have been great, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I've had other job offers, but I've turned them down because I just really like the people and I like working here.
Run to your computer and apply online. This is one of the greatest kept secrets in the school district, really. This is a great job. Just apply online, it's easy. We have, our training is excellent, and we'll do everything we can to help you get through, and you won't regret it, I promise.
Hi, I'm Kerry Charles, and the big story this day, Columbus City Schools is welcoming leaders of all ages back into the classroom for the 2025-2026 school year.
Welcome back to the first day of school in Columbus City Schools.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's
Tell
like
us
that. It's
about
all
that.
that random stuff that you like watch as a kid, and then you're actually doing it. Like we did Dick Clark Rockin' New Year's Eve in Times Square, where we did the Macy's Day Parade,
And that
we
was
were
both
all
in the same year, right?
Ninja Turtles, yeah. And so it's like just bizarre stuff like that. I mean, playing.
Yeah, I mean, playing MTV World Stage in Malaysia was our first like big international show. That was like we had a police escort to the show, and like there were thousands of people.
And we're
it
so
was
self-deprecating. We're like, we don't need cops to
Right.
like
Who are
escort us.
we?
And, like,
No one cares.
Yeah, it's just stuff like that, and then just it's such a gift too to like look out at shows and see faces from 15 years ago still coming, and so that's also a pinch me moment. Like people care that much about our crappy little band. No, we're not crappy. We're good.
Our incredible band.
Our incredible band.
Well, we are so grateful that you're here today and took the time to do this for us and all of our listeners, and we love what you do. Yes. And congratulations on this latest album and all the success.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome, and we'll do our final giveaway after this final song that they take us out with, and it is Neon Trees. What's this last one?
We'll do Everybody Talks.
All right.
Hey baby, won't you look my way? I can be your new addiction. Hey baby, what you gotta say? All you're giving me is fiction. I'm a sorry sucker and this happens all the time. I found out that everybody talks, everybody talks, everybody. It started with a whisper, and that was when I kissed her. And then she made my lips say, I could hear the chit-chat. Oh, take me to your love shack. Mama's always got her back to wreck when everybody talks back. Hey honey, you could be my drug, you could be my new prescription. Too much could be an overdose. All this chat talk making me itchy. No, my, everybody talks, everybody talks, everybody talks too much. It started with a whisper, and that was when I kissed her. And then she made my lips hurt. I could hear the chit chat. Take me to your love shack. Mama's always got a back to rag when everybody talks back. Ooh, I never thought I'd live to see the day when everybody's words got in the way. Hey, sugar, show me all your love. All you're giving me is affection. Hey, sugar, what you gotta say? It started with a whisper, and that was when I kissed her. And then she made my lips hurt. I could hear the chit chat. Oh yeah, take me to your love shack. Mama's always got a back to rag when everybody talks back. Everybody talks, everybody talks. Everybody talks, everybody talks. Everybody talks, everybody talks back. It started with one whisper, and that was when I kissed her. Everybody talks, everybody talks.
What are we going to do? Well, there's a few, but now I'm holding a different guitar, so we'll probably do one of two. Let's do Another Way, which is the... so we're playing songs off of this new album, Beacons, that came out a little while ago, and we're in the middle of this big Beacons tour. The first disc is all what we're calling Americana, which is this electric... you know, that word can mean almost
There's
everything.
a big umbrella there.
Yeah, pretty big umbrella. But we're playing like, you know, some bluesier stuff. And again, we're coming from bluegrass. Disc 2 is all the bluegrass stuff with Jerry Douglas and Sam Bush and that stuff. But we're going to close. This is the song that ends the Americana side. And just say 2 words about it real quick.
Well, for the last couple years, Eric and I just kept talking to each other, and I think talking to everybody I know, and just this term, or this, we just kept saying these same words to each other, which is there's got to be another way for us all to live here on Earth and get along better. There's just got to be another way than what's happening right now, because it's just so awful for all of us. So many of us are in pain and hurting and divided. So this idea of there's got to be another way. So we wrote a song called Another Way, and we hope it touches you.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you all
Thanks
very
for
much.
having us.
Thanks so much, guys.
Sounds great.
I'm going to count us all in. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Tell you which one, 'cause I've been turned around here since the wheels first been spun. It's never made much difference, 'cause you end up where you need. Any old place to hang my hat is home sweet home to me. I've sold myself stories, poured wishes down the well, convinced that this is how it ought to be. Been hunting my own footprints, chasing my own tail, lost in the same old reverie. Sky's gonna clear someday. chosen sides and staked our claims. But isn't it a pity this eternal fight will last? Isn't it in the time we made a change? Oh, hard times ain't here to stay. Our skies gonna clear someday. There's always another way, yeah. We've all got to find another way. Couldn't call it by name, because high low about the carrion crow, in the end it's all the same. You can stroll the beaten path or fly.
How's it going? All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I would like to call this meeting of the Equitable and Transparent Resource Management Committee to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Mr. Lynch?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Simmons?
Present.
Mr. Deere?
Present.
Mr. Katzenmoyer?
Present. Oh, my.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we proceed with the agenda, I'd just like to take a few moments to provide a brief overview of the purpose of this committee. The Equitable and Transparent Resource Management Committee is charged with providing guidance and counsel to the Board of Education on matters related to finance, resource allocation, risk mitigation, and accountability. The committee plays an important role in helping ensure that district resources, whether financial, physical, or human, are allocated in a manner that is equitable, transparent, and aligned with the district's long-term strategic goals. This committee also supports the board's responsibility to maintain strong internal controls, promote responsible stewardship of public resources, and ensure that decisions are made with both data and community impact in mind. Before we move into our business for this evening, I would like to take a few moments to allow the committee to introduce themselves for the record and for the benefit of the community. So I'll just, let's all do, if we could just do like a 30-second introduction, that would be great. I could start. Patrick Katzmeyer, thank you guys all for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time and doing this after work and everything. So I was just elected to school board in November, and I'm still figuring this out. So I appreciate everyone's kind of grace and patience as we go through all this. For the last 10 years, I've been working on public development projects. So things like rec centers, libraries, canine control facilities, and things that kind of bring communities together to create something new in their community. And that is why I wanted to be on this committee. Before that, I worked at Jenny's Ice Cream. I owned a couple restaurants and worked in the State House under Governor Ted Strickland and Minority Leader Joyce Beatty at the time. So tonight we'll do these introductions. We'll approve the last minutes from July. We'll talk about we'll approve the committee charter. We'll talk about the charge of the committee. We'll do some housekeeping stuff, and then we have most of this committee will be taken up by a presentation from the administration and some folks on the facilities team, and then that'll be it. So thanks again. Jen, I'll kick it to you.
I'm Jennifer Adair. I am the past chair of this committee. Excited to be joining as a member. I'm currently chairing the Academic Facility Alignment Committee, which these two committees will do a lot of work together. And I'm also on Policy Committee. I think I'm in my 7th year on the board. I am now the most senior board member, which is a little scary. And so, you know, I'm a mom in the district. I'm a product of a district. My mom's a teacher in the district. And, you know, I'm just excited for the work that we have ahead. So thank you.
Thank you. Munir?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Munir Lynch. It is a great honor to be with you all here today. Very excited to be a new member of this committee. I've gotten to know a few of you in, you know, my campaign for school board in the last year and through different partnerships that I've had with the district. Just for a little bit about me, I am a public and community health educator by training, by background. I really hope to bring the experience that I have in engaging this community and people that have a lot of social determinants of health needs and a lot of resource management that they need. I'm just really honored to be here. This committee plays a very important role in the district. I'm a proud product of Columbus City Schools, and I've had experience in my time at Planned Parenthood teaching in all of the middle schools and most of the high schools. So it means a lot to me to be here. I'm very excited for the work that is yet to come, and just thank you all for what you do for our district.
Great. Cynthia?
Oh.
Should we go all the way around, or should?
Do committee first.
Yeah, let's do the committee first. Go ahead, Cynthia. Thank you.
My name is Cynthia Price. I'm a retired school teacher for CCS, about 33 years. Currently, I work at the Second Chance High School, ECA, a couple blocks down, and I'm a returning committee member, and I'm willing to help at any plans necessary for the budget cuts and help schools develop plans, resources, disbursement of services, and I'm just ready to start the season for the meetings.
Awesome, thank you. Mark?
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Martin Davis. I was trying to boil it down. So I went to school for architectural engineering, got out when the market was not really great, switched over to programming. Been doing programming since 2011. Slowly worked my way up to now I'm a senior engineering manager in a company that's in the AI space. And so I think the skills that I'm really trying to lend here are very complicated resource management and balancement of that. So in my day job, I'm constantly balancing which cloud vendors are we going to be putting loads on and how we're going to utilize them based on availability and cost and all these things. And I see a lot of parallels when I look at the school district and some of the challenges that we have going on. Some other random facts, since Patrick threw that out. My dad and I also tried to do smoked salmon for about 2 years. That's like a whole story I can tell later. So I've also done the small business side of trying to do all the food safety training, figuring out space planning from that perspective, and then building up marketing and clientele and everything. So Really here to just kind of help provide wherever I can in terms of resource planning and management.
Board Member Sims.
Thank you, I don't think this mic is working because the light's not on. So, thank you, Chair Kassenmeyer. What exactly was the assignment? I wasn't in the room.
30-second intro.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure I got the instructions down right. Thank you. My name's Brandon Simmons. I'm this is my third year on the board. I guess I can't say we're going into the third year because it is March now, and so the year's going by really fast. But spent a lot of time thinking about the challenges our district faces and how much more difficult it is for our district than just when I started on the board or when I first started thinking about school finance. And certainly want to help contribute to seeing our district continue to leverage some of our resources better. I know one thing that was kind of thrown out last year during the joint committees was the possibility of adjusting like bell times or vans for transportation. I think that's a great opportunity. Think about how we can better leverage our permanent improvement fund that doesn't really get our district anything. That's not true. I should rephrase that. I should say it doesn't advance construction currently. It just serves to continue to repair our existing portfolio. And so really looking forward to working on those issues and serving on this committee and very happy to be here.
Great. Superintendent and administration, do you guys want to just maybe name and title?
Good evening, everyone. Angela Chapman, Superintendent. Glad to be here to support the important work of this committee.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Happy to support you. I'm Ryan Cook, District Treasurer.
Kevin O'Connor, Internal Auditor.
Carl Williams, Board Clerk.
Russ Brown, Chief of Strategy and Performance.
Alex Trevino, Director of Capital Improvements.
Maurice Odom, Senior Executive Director of Operations.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, guys. Okay, so first thing is the approval of minutes. This will be our first vote, and we're going to approve minutes from June 11th, 2025. Going back to, I think, before the committees were kind of pulled together, but we still have this hanging out there. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from June 11th, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Price? Ms. Price?
Oh, present.
Or just yes?
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Mr. Katzenmeyer?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So again, a little more housekeeping here. So we are, the next item on the agenda is the approval or confirmation of the committee charter. This outlines the purpose, authority, membership, responsibilities of the Equitable and Transparent Resource Management Committee. The charter establishes the committee's role in providing guidance and counsel to the board on matters of finance, resource allocation, risk mitigation, and accountability while promoting equitable distribution of resources and effective internal controls across the district. So this charter was approved in 2024. We just need to reapprove it. So this is the documentation that formally creates this committee. You have it in front of you here, the governance charter. Is there a motion to reconfirm the charter?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Is the Chair Kassenmeyer?
Yeah.
Is the membership? Are there 4 additional volunteer members currently on the committee, and then perhaps someone was just not in attendance tonight, and so we didn't seat them, or
No, but I think definitely open to adding additional folks as we.
It just says that the no fewer than 4 additional volunteer members from the community and representing a cross-section of the greater Columbus community.
Oh.
That's why I raised the, it
I
was
see.
one short.
Yes.
Point of clarification on that. Would that require amendment for today prior to potentially appointing more members, volunteer members of the committee?
Well, the charters need to be actually approved by the board itself, so the change would not be effective until the board would vote on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, should we hold off on this for now then?
So I think it really only matters, I mean, maybe we would have to reapprove the minutes again next meeting, but there's no votes technically on any of the things you have for this meeting tonight. So we would just need to appoint an additional member before the next meeting, and then
Okay.
we're good.
Okay.
My only other point of discussion would be, I think it'd be helpful, there's some language in here about the term. If there was a list, or if we could publicize some way, maybe on the website where it lists the committee members who are serving, if what their term is, 1 year or 2 years. That way just it's a little bit, I don't know how to find that information, and it could be helpful to folks in the community if they want to go find that information. And I know we do that for the board members on our website when our terms are expiring.
We did have, I guess they moved committees is the problem. We had some people leave the committee and go to a different committee.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
say we had people that were on 2-year terms, so.
Yeah, and then there's some movement within the committee. So we'll, that's great, good call out. We will continue to work on this, and we'll get it up on the website. Sounds great, thank you. Okay, so further housekeeping, we need to create a calendar for this committee. Throwing out there a couple ideas, which is either the second Thursday or the third Thursday of each month around this time, and then but completely open to discussion. And if we can't formalize this tonight, we can come back and keep the conversation going. Board Member Simmons.
Oh, I just wanted to let you know we did have a pending motion on the floor for the charter, if you wanted to take that up.
Thank you.
We can't vote on it.
Oh, I thought I wasn't sure what the motion was. I thought we were just confirming the existing. I thought that was the motion on the table that had been seconded.
Can I pull back that motion? Okay. So we'll table that motion to table that motion. Second, thank you. So we'll come back to the charter. Committee, you have a committee calendar offering dates, second and third Thursday. If you guys want to take a look at your calendars real quick and let me know if either of these are preferable. I can do either one, so open to the committee members if there's any thoughts, comments.
I'm personally open to either one. The only thing is the next second Thursday is spring break.
Okay.
We're on spring break that week, so.
That's right. Okay. Anyone in the administration have any thoughts, preferences? I know the third week is usually the same week as our board meetings. If that's okay with you guys? Okay.
I would say the third week is a little bit better.
Okay.
Because the second week, we usually have 2 other committee meetings, or 1 other committee meeting.
One now.
And then policies but it just spreads the work out.
Okay.
A more even distribution of the work.
Okay.
But we're flexible and we'll accommodate.
And you just said third is better. Got it.
I think so.
We may want to, for the December meeting, however, I don't have it on my calendar yet when we go on break. That might be the beginning of break. So might want to move December up just to the 2nd.
Okay. I like that.
And then,
We're good with December 17th.
oh, we are good? Okay.
I believe our break.
Did the 18th? Okay.
I'm not mistaken.
There's no early release that day or anything? Okay.
I'm going to pull up our calendar.
We have a board meeting on the 15th, that Tuesday. It's the last one.
Okay.
mean, at least for me, the third Thursday works best.
Okay.
That's just my personal calendar.
All right, I'm hearing thirds work pretty good for everyone. So, and if during the year something changes, we can always come back and adjust this, of course. But for now, is there a motion to adopt the committee meeting calendar for the third Thursday package here as discussed?
Motion.
Second?
Well, we can't really vote based on what we just said.
I was like,
But we can agree and then finalize at the next meeting.
Very
On
good.
the charter.
Okay. We will do that then, very good. Okay, but we'll get that in everyone's calendars, and we'll have the invites for that sent out, so it's on your calendar through the end of the year. Okay. So, that's the house cleaning for today. We got somewhat clean, but a little more work to do there. And we're going to move into kind of the main portion of this meeting, which is the 3.3, the facilities overview. So I want to start with reading off our official charge that we've been tasked with from the board, and then we'll have a presentation from the administration. So our committee charges. The committee is charged with engaging the community around management of district assets and future use. This work should include discussion around recent board actions, the most recent facilities master plan, and any strategic planning work that has taken place to date. We'll be talking about that today. The work of this committee should focus around the use of district assets and answer questions about future development, repurposing, renovation, upkeep, and potential revenue generation. The goal is to flesh out these questions more thoroughly and integrate them into an integrated and developed strategic plan. Now until June, the focused questions should be, what will the board do with the 270 East State Street property, where we are sitting right now? The committee should also begin discussions about other administrative sites. What will the board do with the Broadley property, Broadley Elementary? What will the board do with the Moeller property? What will the board do with the Fairwood property? So we have this kind of block of four kind of decision and action items that we need to be moving on. Are there any other additional properties the board needs to immediately consider? What was in the previous facilities master plan? Does the previous facilities master plan work for the needs of the district, or does it need to be modified? So that's the from now until June list. From July until December, the committee will work with the Academic and Facility Alignment Committee, of which Board Member Adair is the chair, around the questions of how can we get the community what it wants, what does it cost to give the community what it wants, what are the barriers to giving the community what it wants. And in addition, from July to December, the committee should also begin asking the community the following questions. What will the board do with the remainder of the properties the board has previously voted to close? So that is our official charge. I think this means a few things. The committee is really sitting at the intersection of both big picture, long-term master planning, thoughtful exercises, and specific zoomed-in decisions on real estate parcels with addresses and neighbors and near-term impacts. And I really think we're going to be constantly kind of zooming in and out. And so we have to, have that in our minds as we're going through this. And also thinking about how the short-term impacts the long-term and how the long-term plans are impacting our short-term decisions. We also sit at the intersection of making decisions around what is best for the district, what is best for the neighborhood where our students live, what is possible financially, and what is possible or allowed under the law. And those things will not always be aligned. They're likely not aligned in most cases. And we need to find the balance between return to the district and the return to the community, because we are impacting our kids in both places. We will also have partners in this effort. The City of Columbus, Rec and Parks, neighborhood commissions, nonprofits, community partners. Sometimes they will be telling us what they want. Sometimes they may be developing our land, but I see them playing a big role in this, and I think we'll be bringing them in as this committee goes along. I came into this job believing that a key part of the role will be creating the conditions that will attract families back to the district and grow enrollment in public schools. I've met a ton of people over the last 3 months in a lot of different departments at the district and a lot of folks in the community. Just a few kind of 50,000-foot things that I've learned. We need, on average, larger, newer high schools in order to provide the best offerings to our kids. Extracurricular activities, AP classes, athletics. I believe elementary school should be kind of local and more neighborhood-based, and I believe that we need to find a way to get to new construction fast, or else we are going to choke on our maintenance costs. It is a vicious cycle with older, high-cost buildings preventing available dollars for new schools, and we have to break that. So with that in mind, we are now going to get a facilities overview presentation followed by a question and answer session. If we could please write down your questions, as it's a pretty big presentation, but they'll be moving through it fast. So if we could write down our questions and maybe the slides that they're from, and then we'll have a Q&A session after that. Great. And I'll kick it over to Alex. Are you leading this off?
I think Mr. Oldham is going to lead us off.
So thank you. Mr. Oldham, Mr. Trevino, and Dr. Brown, take it away.
Thank you. Greetings, Chair Katzenmeyer, board members, Superintendent Dr. Chapman, committee members, and audience. Thank you for the opportunity for our team to provide a facilities overview. Through the chair, as you already stated, we would like to hold questions to the end, but we will have a question and answer at the end. Today, we will be covering 5 topics, starting with Alex Trevino giving a high-level view of facilities footprint. Mr. Trevino.
All right, so the map you see on the screen now is the one that's also behind you that Board Member Adair brought in today. So I always just like to point out the breadth of our system. As far north as North Gate, as far south as Cedarwood, as far west as Georgian Heights, and as far east as Liberty Elementary School. You can imagine, I hope you won't be disappointed, that in facility world we tend to take a very systematic and methodical approach to how we quantify our data. Sometimes leaves us at odds with our academic counterparts. So while we count 112 facilities, our academic folks will count 113 schools. And there's a couple good reasons for that, and I just kind of want to highlight some of those. So I think everybody knows the district runs its own virtual school. As you would imagine, there is no physical campus for it. So right off the bat, we have a discrepancy in the way we count. But maybe even a little more strange, we have one school, Woodward Park Middle School, that operates at 2 campuses. And we sometimes joke there's the big park and the little park. It's one school. There's one grade card. There's one leadership team, but it's 2 different addresses. From a facility standpoint, it is 2 buildings. But on the flip side, we also have one facility, which we call Trevitt Beatty Park, that runs 2 separate schools, separate leadership, separate grade cards. So there are just differences, inherent differences in the way we operate. And so it's just the communication that's required to make sure that we're always in lockstep. Can't talk about facilities and not look at the big picture and just how overwhelming it can be sometimes. So we are 8.5 million square feet of academic space. And just to put it in some context, because it's something that people are usually familiar with, if you're in a Walmart supercenter, it's about 175,000 square feet. That's the average size of a supercenter, whether it's Meijer or Target or Walmart. If we were the equivalent of that, we'd be 48 facilities, and that's almost all inside 270. Like when you think about how much square footage we have under roof, it really is overwhelming. Our average age of buildings for our academic campuses is 45 years. Our target is really to get that down to about 25. We say the average lifespan of a facility is about 50 years, so we have work to do. Our oldest facility was built in 1895. The newest one, Afrocentric, was opened in 2017. We have 46 new buildings. We still have 66 legacy buildings. And then across the bottom there, you see all those permanent improvement initiatives that we have running in full swing, trying to keep these buildings up to the best possible condition that we can. Again, just the gross statistics. So in total, we're 9.3 million square feet. So the delta from that 8.5 million square feet are our administrative sites, as well as some other one-offs, things like our adult education site, our Spruce Run Nature Center, and then just over 1,500 acres. So when you think about the amount of asphalt that has to be paved and snow plowed and grass mowed, it really is overwhelming. And so now we'll shift a little bit to topics around real estate, district policy, and Ohio Revised Code. So the internal mechanisms that guide how we handle our real estate are Board Policy 7100, which talk about the facility master plan and the need to update this kind of document that would guide our overall development. Board Policy 7105, which is around school closures, something that we've tackled here very recently. Board Policy 7300 that talks about the disposition of real estate and personal property. And then Board Policy 7550, which talks about partnering with municipalities and the things that we are permitted to do in terms of how we can sort of share resources in terms of how we can better the community. So that then takes us to the ORC stipulations around what we can and cannot do, or what you can and cannot do with real estate. And so that is all really wrapped up in ORC 3313. And 41 is the section that talks about disposition of board-owned real estate. It is 411 that talks about the actual selling of real estate. And then it's 413 that really speaks to the requirements around making the offers to charter schools and community schools. I think everybody's very familiar with those parameters. And then finally, we have to always keep our eye on the ongoing changes that are contemplated with every budget cycle. So that has most recently been House Bill 96, but currently it's Senate Bill 311. And there are ongoing discussions about continuing to modify that language in terms of what you are and are not permitted to do, and what properties can and cannot be sold for. And the thing that we think is maybe of the most pressing is fair market value versus educational value. And we're going to get into just a little bit of examples to explain what the potential risks are in terms of some of those changes. So the other changes that have come up most recently are around utilization. And as I think everybody is aware, utilization can be a very difficult to explain, and it's difficult to quantify too, because it really is based on rules. Somebody has to establish a metric for how we determine utilization. So one building that comes up over and over again is our downtown high school. Has some very unique challenges in terms of how we enroll the facility because of what we do in that space. So the official utilization that we count for the downtown high school is 800. That is the number that was set by the state, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, when we built that facility. So we're pretty solid on that number. When you look at our own enrollment data, our highest enrollment over the past 10 years has been 501 students. Our current enrollment for this school year, as of February, was 461 students. So depending on what the House bill or Senate bill changes would offer and what ultimately would get approved, right now we're looking at, the threshold now is 60%. So 60% of 800 is 480. So depending on how we look at how they count enrollment, we are straddling it, over it, under it, depending on whether you look at a 10-year or whether you look at a current year. But there's current language that is also speaking about the enrollment being the highest of the previous 10 years, which would leave us at that 501 number. So again, just pointing out the language that shows up in these bills and how important it is going to be in terms of what finally gets approved, in terms of what you will or will not be obligated or required to do.
Can you explain why 60% is so important?
Yeah, so right now, that is what the threshold is that is set in ORC in terms of when the board would be required to offer a facility for sale if we are not at 60% utilization. And again, it really comes down to how you define the capacity for a facility, because there are multiple ways to do that. And so what you find is the language is more and more trying to define what that number is.
Thank you.
And if I may, this has been a driver for some of our consolidation work. And just to put a fine point on it, the way this legislation is currently written, if a building meets either of these criteria, if this legislation were to go through, if a building meets either of these criteria, it's considered underutilized, and therefore, this building would be at risk.
Yeah, I think, so like, when you see language around either or, like, those are big determiners, right? Is it the lesser of the two, the greater of the two?
Well, we actually checked with our legislative advocacy group and had a couple lawyers look at it, and the or statement, the either statement is actually effectively an or, and so if you meet either of those criteria. So this language does us no favors and leaves our buildings at risk. And this is a place where I think it's important for advocacy on the behalf of our system.
Chair Katzmar, I know we're not asking questions, so I'm not asking a question, but I'm piping in because something about this is also important in terms of what's actually happening in buildings, like in the academic program, because sometimes we are using rooms that have been counted at a higher utilization, but we're using them for like special education, which is a smaller number of students by law. And so there's a mismatch between the utilization and how we're actually using it per other rules. And so that causes challenge as well in just the way we're talking about these kind of utilization by seat count versus what we're doing in the buildings.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And when you say forced to sell, that means forced to go down the path of potentially offering it first to a charter school, but at the end of the day, forced to dispose of it from the district.
That is correct.
Our community's property.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I mention, we discussed last year a move of Columbus Alternative High School. Where is that in the plans?
Let's let them, I think that one's probably more specific. Let's let them keep going on this, and then we may run into that, or we can discuss it after this.
Thank you. So here is the other concern that keeps coming up too. So the standard for a sale has always been highest best use. Like that is common practice in the disposition of real estate, period. So current language has shifted that to educational value. And understand that depending on the site, that can be an enormous differentiator. And so we are going to walk you through one example of where that is of keen concern, interest to us, and should be to you as well. So if you look at our Kingswood Data Center, which I'm going to assume you are very familiar with, but if you are not, it is at the corner of King Avenue and Kenny Road. So it's right across the street from the Circle K. You can't miss it. It is about 70% of a full city block. So it is bounded by King Avenue, Kenny Road, and Virginia Avenue. Right now, it is a former one-story elementary school facility that's been converted into an administrative site, which is our data center. If you look at what's happened right across the street, and again, this is very typical for what you see for that entire neighborhood between 3rd Avenue and 5th Avenue, and continuing to march into any developable parcel. So right across the street, there is a new apartment complex. The parcel that it sits on is about 1 acre. It sold for $2 million. The current auditor appraised value for the Kingswood site, which is 3 acres, is about $1.9 million because of its current use as an educational site. Clearly, that is not the highest best use for a site such as this, and yet that is what current language would drive towards. I would even argue that our site, your site, is far more developable because it has far more street frontage than this property does, where this one's pretty constrained in terms of it literally has a convenience store sitting right in the inside corner of it. Your parcel, like I said, is 70% of a full city block.
And undeveloped.
And with that, I'm going to hand it to Mr. Oldham, and he is going to provide you with some historical context on facility master plan work.
Thank you, Alex. The next few slides will provide an overview and reflection on where we have been with the facilities master plan and what lessons we have learned from that. This slide provides an overview of our facilities master plan history and multiple updates of our original 2002 facility master plan. Please note that beginning in the late 1970s, we went through nearly 3 decades with no significant building construction. and I'll touch bases on each of those facility master plan efforts as we move through the slides. The 2002 Facility Master Plan was structured as a 15-year program divided into 7 segments, allowing the district to sequence work across multiple bond cycles that were proposed to incorporate 130 fully renovated or new constructed facilities. 46 district schools serving more than 22,000 students within segment 1, 2, and 3 were renovated or improved during this period of time. This next slide is the red burst of the dots that you see, orange dots, show that the 46 sites where they're located throughout the city. But what you would notice is in the core area of the city, that's where you see the most renovated schools. And part of that's because of the way the city was designed. Oldest school first was closer to the city, and as the city has grown, the newest schools are outside, moving away from the downtown area. This next slide just shows you the different segment of schools and what schools are in those segments. And what you would notice in segment 1, there was 19 schools. And of those 19 schools, 2 were renovated. In segment 2, there was 15 schools. And of that, 7 were renovated. And then in segment 3, there were 12 schools, 3 were renovated. So a total of 46 schools with 12 of those sites being renovated. The 2016 Facility Master Plan was the first update to the District Facilities Master Plan to ensure that long-term decisions about school buildings reflected changes in student enrollment, evolving education needs, and community expectations. The board approved the plan in June of 2016, providing the district with a roadmap for future facilities planning and investment. A new construction bond issue was delayed in lieu of deferred maintenance bond issues, which we called Operation Fix It. In 2016, Columbus voters approved Issue 57, a property tax increase designed to fund district improvements, and the 5-year initiative was designed to target deferred maintenance projects throughout the district. The 2002 effort was brought on to ensure the school buildings actively supported the district's strategic plan, the Power of One, and also the newly defined portrait of a graduate picked up where the 2002 Facility Master Plan left off. Specific focus on segment 4, so we specifically focused on segment 4. And as a reminder, the original 2004 Facility Master Plan included 7 segments. Segment 1 and 2 were completed with only minor revisions. Segment 3 was partially completed, and it varied greatly from the original plan. Segment 4, 5 was deferred, and the bond issue considered for 2022 was deferred as well. However, in November 23, there was a levy combined for $7.7 million, which $3 million of that was for operating levy, which is a $38,612,000 for operating levy, and the other $4.7 million, or $60,492,000 per year, was to go towards deferred maintenance improvement fund. This next slide is attachment, and there's a attachment in the bottom where you can click on and gives you the history and the scope of the outcome of each facility master plan. And then also right now I would transition and turn it over to Dr. Brown.
And the most recent work in this space was around school realignment. And a couple years back, the board had charged the district staff to begin to look at consolidation to make more efficient use of space in our system, and to begin to move students into the best learning environments that we could. So a task force was formed following board policy, and the task force, again, the role of that task force was advisory to produce recommendations that then were taken to the board for the board to vote on. The scope of the work really focused on district enrollment trends, building utilization and capacity, facility conditions, operational efficiency, and community input as we went through that. It did not look at educational specifications or any standard for what we would want future education to look like in the system. It really was an effort to make the best use of the facilities that we have currently, and to move away from older, more expensive facilities that are very expensive to maintain. So, and part of that, again, was driven by, and I think this is articulated early on, trying to create larger school enrollments, because with larger school enrollments, we know that we can have more robust offerings for our students, including both academic offerings and also extracurricular. And it's also the way that we can best utilize and honor taxpayer investments in our current facilities. As has been reviewed before, there are some buildings that have been renovated, and we want to make best use of those facilities as we work through that. That committee worked between February and June of '24 in a sort of phase process. They worked through initially to come up with a set of initial recommendations, knowing that we were going to take them to the community for feedback. Those initial recommendations, if you go back and look at them, you'll see that they had to be preliminary, because some of them were actually sort of contradictory. You couldn't implement both of them at the same time. We genuinely wanted feedback from the community to help inform where we were moving forward with that before we came forward to the board with the final recommendations. So in June of '24, we came forward and produced those final recommendations. Again, initially, really looked at enrollment and utilization across our buildings, facility conditions. Again, we wanted to ensure that we were moving students into the best possible facilities that we could. And then, again, this produced those scenario-based recommendations that we brought out to the community to be able to look at, provide feedback to. And those things, if you go back and forth and look at those, you'll see that the community feedback actively informed our final recommendations to the board. More. We brought those to the board in June. The board took some time to also involve a consultant to vet these via an equity lens. The board took the opportunity to go out and engage with the community and visit the buildings. And in December of 2024, the board voted for closure for 5 facilities: Broadley, Buckeye, the McGuffey facility with the movement of cause, Moeller Elementary, and West Broad contingent on including a replacement building in the FMP as we move forward. With the pressure from the legislature and the potential for buildings to be forfeited, much like we're facing now, again, directed to try to consider additional consolidations to protect buildings, protect investments in this system, and to accelerate, again, the movement of students to better learning environments. We came back to the board in December of '25, and these additional buildings were voted for closure as well. Como Elementary, Duxbury Park, Everett, which houses CGA, and Fairwood Elementary. 3 of those buildings will close at the end of this year: Broadley, Moeller, and Fairwood. And in each case, those students are moving from an aged facility with high maintenance costs to a renovated, newer facility in each case. So moving forward, as we're going through that process, we've been working with the school communities to, again, ensure clear communication about the new boundaries. We involved the community in the boundary setting process for Broadley and Moeller. Didn't need to do that for Fairwood because Fairwood is going in whole to Ohio, so we didn't need to draft a new boundary for it. We provided multiple opportunities for folks to provide input, and in fact, when you look at the boundaries for Broadley and Moeller, I can point out specific things in those boundaries that were absolutely informed by community input and shaped what those boundaries look like in the end. And again, throughout the remainder of this year, we're working to now go through the actual physical closing process of the buildings, where we want to, again, honor the investments in the time that folks have spent in these buildings, and to be able to memorialize that experience as we go through that closing process. There is a sense of loss when folks are moving away from it is an anchor to the community, and we need to acknowledge that as we're doing it, even though we are moving students to better facilities and often very, very close to them. part of that process has been making the opportunity for students and families to be introduced to their new principal, get invited to the new building, to be able to understand what that new environment will be like, et cetera. And again, the whole idea is to build that connection with the new school to facilitate that movement forward. And with that, I'm going to hand things back to Mr. Trevino then to talk about what we do after we close.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to move through some of these slides fairly quickly because we'll get into more detail, particularly with land and just kind of geography on most of these. So highlights, November 19th of 2024, the board authorized moving forward with demolitions at Deschler Elementary, Old Wedgwood Middle School, and the Franklin Annex. Then the following May 20th of 2025, we got authority to demolish an additional 4 facilities, those being Beaumont Elementary, Monroe Middle School, Linmore Middle School, and Beery Middle School. The vast majority of this work is complete at this point. Linmore may be finished or finishing as we speak. Beery Middle School is the one that's really outstanding, and that's really driven by the fact that CML had been leasing that facility until very recently.
And just to pop in real quick, this is the work of this committee. So these demolitions went through this committee first.
Thank you. Yep, good call out. So then when we look at the actual real estate, so these are the parcels that are completely vacant. They have no district use at this point. So those are the Pinecrest site, which frankly had been demolished previously. So this piece of property has been vacant for many years. Before I came to the district, we demolished this building, if I had to guess, maybe 15, 18 years ago. It has been a vacant parcel of land. Monroe Middle School is the one that we just recently demolished. And again, I'll show you some geography and more details there in a little bit. Beaumont, which was most recently the site for Columbus Spanish Immersion Academy. And then the Maderi site is also vacant. That one still has a facility on it. And again, I'll show you that one here when we get into the maps in just a second. So we'll move on to those maps for each of the sites. So just kind of, I will sort of read the slides here. So this is an inactive site. So we very clearly identified the inactive versus active sites. And for the active sites, I'll specify what those are. So this is that Pinecrest site. It's about 7.5 acres. It is kind of tucked right in between. So it's just north of Livingston, and it is about halfway between Johnson Park and Sherwood Middle Schools. You can see it's a very neighborhood setting, literally in the backyards of many, many residences.
Alex, can you just real quick, why does active and inactive matter?
So active, inactive is very important because when there is no active site, I mean, you can imagine from a very practical standpoint, we don't necessarily have an obvious intended use, and that also triggers the requirement to dispose of these properties versus an active site where there is a current district use happening on it that would not make it eligible for that requirement.
Or connected to an active site?
Yeah, it'll make more sense when we get to one of the ones you'll see. Like, I think it's just easier to call out when you actually can see what some of these uses are, because it's quite different by site as well.
Say that again. It's important because
It's when we have to dispose. So the law triggers when there is no academic use, so inactive, on the property. So the law will trigger about when we have to sell, and that's been in the law. That's not new. And so we do right now have properties that totally fit within this pool that we need to decide what we want to do, and that's the ones that Alex is going through right now. But active sites are different because they don't fit into the rule because there's academic use on it or adjacent to it. So we're not under the same stress or pressure, and we can do more planning, and we are doing planning on some of those parcels.
Thank you.
Yep, so the next inactive site is the former Monroe Middle School site. So I will point out, so you're going to see arrows on most of these slides. Where you see an orange arrow, it is a site that you have either authorized us to demolish. In many cases, they're already demolished. If you see green arrows, which you will not see on this one, it is active sites. So oftentimes there is an active building in continuous use by CCS on the same site, but obviously not on an inactive site. So this site, if you kind of look to the northwest of it, is the I-71 670 exchange. Kind of right immediately across diagonal is the Fort Hays campus. We are literally right in the shadows of the former Sawyer Towers. I forget the name they've had most recently that I think are going to get demolished and redeveloped into some kind of housing. The next site is our old Wedgwood Middle School site. It's about 19 acres, and we always like to point this one out because I don't know how this even happened, but it may be the only site that is one contiguous parcel, even though it does not touch itself. So it is bisected by Eakin Road. So the green arrow to the north is our current Eakin Elementary School. The green arrow to the south is the new Wedgwood Middle School. And right in the middle is the former Wedgwood Middle School, which is now demolished. But to the point, so it is an active site with current active use. There is no requirement or trigger that would require the board to dispose of that property. The Beaumont site, similar to that Pinecrest site, so that building is now demolished. So it is, Morse Road is to the north of it, Cleveland Avenue is to the east of it. Again, very residential neighborhood. It is now a completely inactive site, just about 5.5 acres. This might be the most unique site in terms of its current use. So the Deschler Elementary School site, you can see the orange arrow used to be Deschler Elementary up along Lockbourne Road and Deschler Avenue. So when we renovated South High School, there is not enough property at that site to house baseball and softball. So they are one of our, not uncommon, East High School also has off-site athletics. So this is the home for the baseball and softball field for that facility. I want to say those were developed in maybe around 2012. And so even without the school facility there, this is clearly an active use that we need to be able to continue to operate a high school. Just real quick, I will point out to you, you'll notice there is a city park adjacent to it immediately to the east. Medary Elementary is the inactive site that currently has a structure on it. So that's why I did not put the orange arrow there. So there is no current plan to demolish or to do anything else with this particular facility. So it is a very constrained, tight site. It is only about 2.5 acres. It is a 3-story, while not identified as historic, it is a 125-year-old facility. It is quite lovely, maybe outside of the addition that's to the north of it, bounded roughly by Hudson Street and Indianola Avenue. That takes us to the Linmore Education Center. So again, a very unique site, a very large campus here, just under 22 acres. You've probably seen it from Hamilton Avenue immediately to the east, almost bounded by 71 to the west. It serves multiple uses. So you'll notice the green arrows that point out the Hamilton STEM Elementary School, which is to the north and which was also completely renovated about 3 years ago. It also has a smaller facility to the southwest corner we call the Linmore Annex. It also has the baseball and softball fields for Lyndon McKinley High School.
That one's on here just because there's a demolition happening, or it was.
Yes.
Yep, sorry.
The Linmore.
That big orange arrow, I think this may have at one point been our single largest middle school facility. I forget the exact square footage. 1-story building, sprawling, gigantic. If it's not 100% demolished, it is very, very close.
But the rest of it, we still need and will continue to use.
Yeah, because it's an elementary school in the fields, and then the library's out now, right? Because they opened the Linden branch.
They just moved out and reopened their branch on Cleveland Avenue. Yep.
I'm just thinking if we view this one slightly different than the rest, because it's a ongoing thing. Okay, yeah, just thinking out loud. Thank you.
There will be a lot of open space there. I'll save the rest of that for another day. we can talk about that one a lot if you wanted to. Our Franklin Annex site is the current site for the Columbus Preparatory School for Girls site, which is the green arrow. The orange arrow is the annex. It was a completely detached, separate facility that had some classrooms as well as an auditorium and I think a gym. Had been abandoned for many, many years. It is now demolished, but again, part of that bigger contiguous site. It's Bryden Road's frontage to the south of it. Miller Avenue is just to the east. And then our Beery Middle School site is the last site. And so again, if the orange arrow is the last property that will get demolished, and it's the portion that's up against Lockbourne Road, so the city's rec center and a pool are right across the street. The new library is just a little bit to the south of us. Where you see the green arrow is our current Marion Franklin High School, and so this is all one contiguous site. And then we're going to close today with a little bit of kind of strategy and some just big talking points about where we see things in the facility world. So we put this graphic together to really kind of demonstrate and highlight what we see as the roadmap for success when it comes to facilities. Obviously, there's no reason for facilities to exist in this context without academics. Their only purpose is to support the academic mission. But within that, we see 3 legs to our facility plan. And I'm going to highlight that one of them is clearly missing right now, and one thing we really need to work on. So these 3 things need to work together. They are all kind of symbiotic. Without all 3 of them working well, we will continue to struggle. So in no particular order, but I'm going to start with life cycle renewals because it's the one that's confronting us every single day right now. So thankfully, we have this PI levy from 2023. It is allowed. I think everybody has seen the tremendous volume of work that we've pushed through the system. We will continue to make big inroads in life cycle renewals. So we've got that piece reasonably well stood up. We'll need to continue to look at how we prioritize that work. We'll need to continue to look at how inflation chips away at our buying power. But right now, we're pretty solid on life cycle renewals. Dr. Brown just talked about portfolio optimization. And let's be honest, that's kind of the pretty word. It's school consolidation right now. But it could be something quite different in a different time frame, right? So it's thinking about what our enrollment looks like. It's talking about our capacity and making sure that we're as closely aligned as we can be. And even if our enrollment doesn't change, even if it doesn't change, our families will move around the city. So thinking about, are we prepared to continue to transport families, or do we need to be thinking about relocating facilities closer to where our population actually exists? You know, if we were a retail model, we'd be closing stores just like Starbucks and Walmart and everybody else. It's not quite that simple for us, but I think we need to at least look at it. And then the last piece is new construction. And I would argue that, you know, that is always our long-range approach. The other 2 are much shorter term. So portfolio optimization tends to have a fairly short life cycle. It also continues, right? We need to look at it anytime there's a major change. Life cycle renewals is always. Some of it's very short term. It tends to live in the medium term space. It is how we take care of the facilities that we've already built. New construction is really important because I talked to you about a 50-year lifespan being realistic, what we need to think about for a facility. As our facilities start to exceed 50 years, and we're getting to a point where we are not going to be able to keep up, we can't fix these buildings over a 2.5-month summer break. I can't get under the floor to replace plumbing. I can't get behind walls to fix stacks and infrastructure. There's certain things I just cannot do while we're occupied in a building. And so having that last piece is really important because it's our outlet for our worst condition buildings. And I also feel like sometimes we have to remind people, like, I think it's one of the unique things about the K-12 space where we're so distributed across the city. Like, I'm sure everybody's been to Ohio State's campus. Like, our scale is not that different in terms of the number of students we serve. They just happen to all be on one campus. So you see the cranes. There is never a point in time, and I don't care how bad the economy is, there is never a point in time where there's not construction going on. And until we can shift that mindset within our organization, we will continue to struggle. We're simply too large. And so getting these 3 pieces working together is instrumental to us finding success in facilities so we can support academics. And then,
Alex, sorry, I just want to pop in around that. Can you go back? Because I think it's really important to tie the work of the Academic Facility Alignment Committee to your chart, which is great. So that purple circle is actually what we are working on when we talk about educational visioning and developing ed specifications, because we don't have that either, which makes it hard to actually then talk about new construction and optimization. So we are working on that, and that's why I said these 2 committees will be working together a lot this year on things. So just to kind of pop that in on your chart, which is great.
Yeah, I love it. Listen, it's a buzzword, but we love to say it because it rhymes. Instruction should drive construction. Like, there's nothing we should do that should not be led by instruction. And so then we will close with just some major headwinds that I think we have to always be thinking about in terms of how we manage this work. So I already talked about it, but how do we prioritize and align work? If we really mean instruction drives construction, where do we focus? Local funding. Let's be honest, we're going to have to always be thinking about what the funding needs are and how we can acquire those funds to be able to execute on a plan. I'd be remiss to not point out our administrative facilities. So while we're hyper-focused on our academic facilities, the reality is our administrative facilities are in no better condition. Some of them are actually in worse. And so we're going to find ourselves in that same position. We're going to reach a tipping point where we have no choice but to make investments. And should we be thinking about making different investments? Frankly, structure and staffing. With our very limited staffing, there's only so much we can manage and produce internally. So how do we look at leveraging other resources, potentially contracted resources, to be able to meet the goals that we've established? And then maybe the one that is the most difficult, because it's really not us, it kind of happens to us, but how do we leverage the partners that we have to help adapt as quickly as we can to city growth and changes in development patterns across the region? And with that, we will happily take any questions that you have today.
Thank you very much. That was that was excellent. Really appreciate you guys putting this together. I have a couple questions, and I'll open it up. But I wanted to respond to Cynthia's question. Actually, she asked about cause, and I have a better answer. I think that, to your question, is why we are all here. Like, that's our job, is to kind of figure out what to do. There's been a vote to close, but as you can see with all these facilities, some there's vacant spaces, there's spaces that have been voted to close but haven't closed yet. Some are just land, and I think we're going to be wrestling with that a little bit, all these different pieces and different points in the process, and how do we move that forward. So just my thought there. I had a question about financing. This one might go to the treasurer, but I think from a public point of view, we hear about these issues that we have with our budget, but it really, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we could possibly start new construction kind of from a financial perspective. Maybe what's the straightest path to that?
Great question, thank you. The most immediate path would be to monetize a portion of our permanent improvement funds. So I looked at this about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, and if we took $10 million, 16% of our PI levy, the $60 million that we have, and monetize that over a 30-year period, we could finance up to approximately $155 million. So you would be looking at a high school, potentially. If you didn't want to go high school, you could do maybe an elementary and a small middle, et cetera, but we could look it up to $155 million. I'd want to rerun those numbers because of interest rate environment that's changed since I last looked at that. But our permanent improvement money, we could carve off a portion of that, still maintain some of those short-term funds for the immediate needs to fix up, but then also position us to begin to whet the appetite of the community as to what we can do in the long run with respect to new facilities, and then show to that academic piece, what can we provide in that classroom that modernizes?
Can I jump in? I think that we got to take one step back, Treasurer, though, and explain maybe to the newer committee members about the pools of money. So Chair says, we have budget issues. Well, we do on the operations side, but we have a PI, which is different, and we have building things which are different. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Great question. So when we talk about our budget constraints now, we talk about the budget cuts we've made. That's our general fund, our general operating dollars. So let's think of that in terms of one bucket of funds that are there. The second bucket of funds that was referenced in the presentation was passed in November of '23, permanent improvement levy. It generates approximately $60 million a year. That's a separate bucket that we use. I'll call it kind of break fixes. As Mr. Trevino said, they go out, they renovate our facilities, they take care of some of those deferred maintenance items with Operation Fix It, et cetera. We could utilize a tranche of that $60 million that's separate from our general operating funds and monetize it by creating, let's say, a mortgage, if you will, for those at home that are listening. We would have a mortgage on our facility. We would make that mortgage payment out of our permanent improvement funds. we're now working on a permanent improvement budget, capital plan, so that we can adequately make sure that revenue stream, thank you, is protected as we go forward. We will budget that if that's the desire of the board and the superintendent. We'll make sure those funds are available and monetize it. But there are two buckets, to Board Member Adair's point. General operating that we won't use to pay the mortgage. Obviously, we can't afford to do that right now, but we'll use our permanent improvement funds potentially for that immediate need.
And we can't use PI dollars because it was specifically set up for operating, because it was specifically set up by our voters to come into a very specific fund. And this is the first time the district had something like this. And that's why it's so important to make sure we're super clear. So we talk about our general fund operating, and we're having struggles there, and most of that is the state and the way the state is funding us. But our community stepped up and gave us this pool of money, very specific in the legislation that the voters voted for. It sets it up, is a special fund that we cannot touch, only for these specific
No
purposes.
salaries, no benefits,
No
none
general
of that.
fund stuff can come from there, but it's all for buildings, maintenance, capital improvements, all that stuff. And our community has been seeing that ever since they approved it, in upgrades to our facilities, to athletics, to renovations, to new playgrounds. So we've been seeing it. And so it's hard because we'll say like our organization is like almost $1 billion organization because we're adding all these buckets in, but we have a very strict kind of rules about what money can be used for what.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Each bucket of funding is restricted. Permanent improvement has limitations, just like state and federal programs, athletic funds, student activity funds, general funds. So it's important to highlight that. These are our capital improvement dollars that are going to go towards the educational vision and implementing then the facilities around that.
And I think the goal would be, so you got 60 million a year. If you're taking a slice off of that to get, this mortgage, the goal would be that the schools you're able to put into that new building no longer need to be, essentially throwing money away with these costs. So it saves money in the long run, and I think that's kind of one of the things we need to get around. Did you have something on that? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, I think that really underscores the real opportunity cost to continuing the current ratio of 100% of our PI fund on maintenance, because in 10 years we will still be maintaining all of our 112 academic facilities. But if we instead, begin to change that ratio and we do invest, say, 16%, in 10 years, we will have, many new buildings online, hopefully, or at least a few. And I do want our treasurer to talk about how we have some millage and bond impacts coming up in really just a few short years, within the next 5 years, I believe. Because that will underscore how we can finance a little bit differently as well. But really the opportunity cost is right now, over 10 years, we're just putting in maintenance. Eventually these buildings, you can only maintain them for so long. I know from being at CAUS, one of our oldest, we have many older, but it is an old facility, that it gets to a point where you really have to come in and make some large scale, as our Director Trevino said, it gets to the point where you do have to make those large scale investments. I know from I'm hoping we can talk some about our administrative sites, because even being at 270, you start to see the impacts from the roof. We see that every meeting now.
3,700. I mean 3,700.
What did I say?
Here.
2,700, yeah, 3,700. Yes, no, but But so there's a real opportunity cost to continuing not to do construction. It's not just a matter of, hey, we're not building new buildings. It's a matter of we're spending that. There's an opportunity cost, and then also, as Director Trevino indicated, there's inflationary pressures that make every year that $60 million carries us a little bit less ahead. And until there is an additional investment from our community into that PI fund or from the state or a partner, that money carries us even less. Core inflation is about 3 to 4%, if not higher, depending on the recent events, but the construction sector is even higher. Yeah. And so when we look at cost estimates to build a school today versus cost estimates the last time we did an FMP, it's really striking, the cost increase, and that, our dollar every year is going to go less and less further if we don't get construction underway.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Simmons. We we, on our public sector projects, we usually slate in a 5% escalation fee, cost per year. So, for every $100 million that we have every year, we are getting $5 million less for that. So there's definitely a desire to do this sooner rather than later, because we'll get more bang for our buck. Go ahead. Did you have something around that? Go ahead, Cynthia.
So my question is, that's all well and good, the PI program. But right now, we're facing $50 million that are taken away from academics of our school. We're focusing also on trying to build new facilities. We've already had to let go many teachers, custodians, maintenance crews, higher administration that we need for the academics. And the public we should tell the public why this is happening. Is it happening because the legislation is doing a land grab of our facilities? This House Bill 96, this SB 311. Why is legislation trying to land grab our property and then cut $50 million? And then next year, they're going to cut another $50 million. But yet, they're pushing us to sell our property or grab our property that we need.
Or sell it at a fire sale.
Yeah. Why is legislation doing this to the largest public school system in the state of Ohio? But yet, we are faced as a committee, and our public continue to vote and support Columbus City Schools. It's totally disgusting.
Agree 100%. I mean, I'll let anyone else. I mean, this would just be an opinion, but I think in the Republican-controlled state house, there's a desire to push people towards charter and non-public schools, and just not a belief in the public school system. So, I mean, my belief that all the legislation kind of stems from that base belief, difference of a belief than the folks in this room. So, we'll always be fighting against that. And I think we have to pick our battles, kind of to Dr. Brown's point about advocacy around the 60% metric. Like, how do we, how do we hone in and figure out what we're fighting for on that end? Brandon, do you have something?
I was going to say, I think that's where we can lean into our legislative platform a little bit, and where public school leaders, not just here in Columbus, but really across the state, I think, can. There is a small slice of, some key decision makers who are a bit more receptive to some pragmatic arguments, and I think when they're tailored by the right messengers to the right people on the right day of the week, perhaps, they can be a little bit more receptive. But, things like, different funding of mechanisms and authorities, so there are some, I think, pragmatic approaches, but I think the ask has to be made from us to those folks.
Chair, I just wanted to, I had a sidebar with the treasurer, and I just wanted to tell everyone what I had asked him, because I couldn't quite remember. Because the last board knew that it was so important to build, we actually set up a specific fund where we did a transfer last year to seed a fund for new construction. So that's different, and in addition to the PI, it isn't a lot compared to what our budget is, but it was the start of the idea to really say, we have to start planning for this future building. And so I want to just acknowledge that, because that is something different, again, that we're doing as a district. So we do have that. It's not going to build a building right now, but just that kind of idea and philosophy.
Treasurer Cook, could you speak more to this?
How much
these
was
monies
that?
we have
Yeah,
somewhere.
great question. So we established a construction fund last year. It was in the spring as we were dealing with House Bill 96, and there was a lot of talk around the 40% cash balance requirement that the state said. They looked at everyone that had any cash in the bank as wealthy. So what was a strategy we as a district could begin to employ to protect that? We didn't get hit with it, but what the board did proactively was establish a construction fund. We seeded it with $1 million. Again, it's not going to build a building today, but it was the initial start where we could set aside additional funds as we come out of a fiscal cliff, if you will, financial instability, and have that along with other funding opportunities in the future. So I would think of it like a savings account. We funded it. We've got it open. It's there. It's designed to protect funds. We weren't the only district in the state that did that. It was a defensive measure so that we didn't have to risk further erosion of our funds from the state. But the board took that challenge and created an opportunity for future students with that savings account, if you will.
Does it go in every year, or was it just a one-time?
That was a one-time. We have it appropriated. We've not asked for a transfer at this point in time this year. Certainly, I think as we head into the spring, that'll be a discussion that's forthcoming.
And it was PI money?
No, that was a general fund move at that point in time because we were specifically under attack with respect to the cash balance that we had on hand.
They were saying we'd have to give it back to the state.
Much like the 60% ratio we're dealing with on facilities, anything that was over 40%, there was a lot of discussion about the state clawing back across the state of Ohio. So we took defensive measures, if you will, to open that fund to lower our cash balance. We at the same time opened up an 035 that we will continue to fund because we have a 27th pay that's coming up in fiscal year 28. We also pay severance when folks leave every year. Those are ongoing expenses we know we have, so we deferred money into that fund as well. That's separate from the capital we're talking about. But those were the two moves the board made to defend against that potential erosion at the state level of our cash balance in the general fund.
Is there, do you know the dollar amount in there?
Yeah, we did. I believe it was, actually, I don't want to give you that figure. Let me circle back and check. It's been a year. I don't want to throw something out there inaccurate. I know on the capital fund, it was $1 million. We took severance money. We split the 27th pay over. I'll follow back up. I want to give you the right number.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, quick question. Can you clarify what that 40% is referring to again? Like,
yeah, so the state had this discussion around how much cash can a district hold on hand with respect to the operating budget, and they just came up with a metric that said 40% is what they believed was the maximum.
So 40% of the budget being cash on hand?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And if we had more than that, we had to give it.
The potential risk was there for a clawback, let's say.
Got it.
Yes, sir.
So on paper, Columbus City Schools it's as if we're this like rich, thriving, financially stable district.
That's why they cut it to 50 million.
Well, I'm glad we were able to avoid it that way.
Yeah, we were not unique in that. That metric posed a lot of challenge across the state of Ohio. There were a handful of districts that it didn't impact, but there were a lot that it did.
Okay.
Treasurer Cook, you can keep me honest on the numbers, but I believe we were looking at refunding like $100 million back to the community, and Worthington was like 30, and a bunch of other Central Ohio school districts were looking at getting whacked.
Yeah, there was a substantial hit around, let's say, the Beltway, if you will. It was a big risk, and that was funding that we felt we needed to be defensive on to protect. I think we kept it in the community. It's there to be utilized versus the risk of potentially going back to the state.
100%. Great work on that.
Patrick. Yeah, so I want to.
I'm sorry, wait, Munir, were you?
No, you go first. Okay. Go ahead.
Mark.
I want to kind of change the dialogue and the conversation, speaking of getting ahead and getting defensive, right?
Wait, real quick, before you do that,
Please do.
I wanted to give Treasurer Cook can I give you some homework to update that analysis that we were just taught, not the 40%,
The mortgage, we'll say?
the mortgage?
Already
Okay.
in process.
Okay, great. You can just send that to the committee, I guess.
Cool.
Thank you. Go ahead, Martin. Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay, I think one thing is it's not exactly clear to me which parts are actually law and which parts are proposed. So when we're talking about the properties that we need to run through and figure out dispositions of, I think I do need a little bit more clarification on what is exactly law right now versus what's sitting there in SB 311.
So that's in the process right now. This is, I think, the third time it has come up.
Right, yeah, it was HB 96 the year before, I remember. Yeah.
So if that were to go into place, a number of our buildings across the system would fall below that 60% threshold. And I think Ms. Price also picked up the notion that it would reduce our flexibility for consolidation.
Yeah.
So not only would we lose facilities, we'd also lose the capacity to be able to do some of the things that we've already planned to do. So certainly, we're going to lean into some conversations around that to try to influence how that can look as we move forward. But I appreciate the urgency that the members of this committee expressed regarding what that could mean for our system and our community.
Can you help me to understand, though, like right now with the properties that you're asking us that we reviewed tonight? Like, so for example, because I think like this is what I mean about changing this conversation defensively, right? Like I personally don't want to see us sell anything. I would rather us find public-private partnerships, right? Because I think when we talk about revenue, right, selling is a one-time deal. Maybe we can use it for something, maybe we can invest it to get interest out of it, but I'd much rather see it be a long-term revenue generator. And so that's why I'm really curious, like, where does the legislation stand right now in this moment for some of these properties that we're talking about? And if we don't know, that's okay. We can circle back, but it's,
No, we know.
it's topical.
And I think it should, be- while they're getting that, selling, also, the money from sales of land does not go into general fund. That's another thing, like, you can't use it to buy teachers. The law puts it back into the PI-type building bucket.
Okay, I have a question, if I may ask.
Wait, real quick,
Okay.
so Martin can get an answer. I mean, would it make sense to have a, at our next meeting, like maybe a 10-minute presentation on what is law right now on this? Would that be helpful? Or unless someone else wants to answer that at the moment.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
But also,
I
there-
would ask that our legal counsel, if you want strict law, but they know the properties right now that are in the bucket where the state could just be like, okay, we need that now. And Monroe is one of them.
All the inactive sites.
All of the inactive sites that we have.
The ones on page 30 resources that could be sent out.
Remember last year when we had that meeting of those inactive sites that we were thinking of parks and tennis courts for our facilities and our students, what we can use because we had, and that conversation seems to go over the heads of this House Bill 311, this land grab, and it's kind of got lost in the shuffle. Another thing is the comfy homes that I think you mentioned for the schools that are closing. The public needs to know where their children are going to be displaced. What school, when it happens, they need to know now. Because that's why we have such a disarray in our district, because we don't inform the public on radio, on television, in meetings, whatever, where their child is going to go to what comfy home. Because they may be displaced. They may not feel it's so comfy. So I think we need to really be very transparent to our community about these land grabs, what the state is doing, what House Bill 96 is, which Senate Bill 311, we need to tell the public. And they want to know what they voted for. They don't understand. Frankly, I don't understand.
Agree.
And why is their child being displaced, moved to a new school, new teacher, when their generation family has gone to this elementary school, then this middle school, and then this high school, but now they can't go and they can't see their teachers that their parents had. You know what I'm saying? This is important. We have the largest district. If we want to continue to produce graduates and get our school rating up, we need to be more concerned about what's going on with academics in our schools and the public. And
That's
whether or not-
exactly what we're working on in academics. So thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Price. You always focus on the academic side, which is amazing.
If I could add also, you were speaking to earlier about the closed sites. Yeah. And that falls under Ohio Revised Code 3313.41.
Yep. Okay.
Outside the grab. And so the reality of it is what it speaks to is, and it changed, it used to be 2, it's 1 year. After a period of time when the building's empty, it triggers there, we have to offer the school for sale. And we have to offer for sale first to high-performing charter schools, and then charter schools, and then after that. And the reason why I bring that up is important because there's a lot of discussion we have about, we know we have housing issues in the community, and there's opportunities to do things, but the reality of it is, we can't even get to the portion of the housing point based on today's law and rules until we go through this revised code process. So I think that's important as well. So we got the land grab rule we're speaking of, but we also have the revised code portion we're talking about as well. Even to the point, and it depends on who's interpreting at times, when a building's empty, we try to use it for storage, which is still a use. It's been said, no, that's not considered a use now, even though we need storage. So again, there's many things like that that come to play. So when the question about these closed sites, there are some sites that's already in the time frame to be offered, but no one has pushed the ticket, if you will.
Right.
Or no one's made it offer. And then the other thing, we used to have to set it at market value as well. And so there was a loss for that as well.
And just to highlight that, because we have buildings closing at the end of this school year, when they stop using educational use, right? So we can't just put admin, we can't use storage, we can't, hold it. The time starts running and it's a year. The board will have to decide if it's going to reuse it for educational use or sell it.
So I think along those lines, like, this is what I mean, like, let's start trying to get creative in our solutions and push back, right? Like, is there a way to find a public-private partnership where we're still doing education and providing other things on top of it, right? I mean, like the Nature Center, I was kind of amazed to learn about the Nature Center, right? Are there other things like that we can offer so that we're still running it actively for education?
Yes.
And then find partners to help us build it up?
I think there is, but the challenge now is the properties have stacked up, and the board's construction commitments have also begun to stack up. And so the question is, can we do that for, one, for which properties, right? Because, we have some properties that, we're in a property right now, 270, that would probably be our most premier development opportunity of properties we own, whereas we have some parcels, maybe it's far out, near the edges of our district, it's not as valuable. And so I think that's a huge question. And then because of the time, the clock, the state law, the 1 year period, that puts us in a position where we have to do those things quickly. And that's something I think it takes time to build capacity in our team and our professionals. And that's, we shouldn't expect our team to be able to deliver us 6 parcels that are, public-private partnership developed in 10 years. That's something they need to build capacity and knowledge and expertise as. Even building is something we haven't done 10 years in the district. And so maybe we've lost some of those workflows and processes. And so I think that's a question, but also I think the real question, and I hope some of the work group, which, we haven't talked about at all, I'm a little bit disappointed the work group hasn't come up at all yet. But, we have a work group that is supposed to be supporting, some of this work and that we're talking about we're going to be doing. And, the real question is how can we get all of our parcels that the board owns to generate a net positive for our district, and that's either because it's an academic site for a new facility or because we are able to sell and use those dollars for construction. But I think now we have a lot of parcels that aren't contributing to the vision and the mission of the district, and I think we have to recognize also that we do have an excess amount of property and an excess amount of seats in the district, and even if our enrollment was to grow, we're not going to grow by the number of excess seats we have in the next 5 years or the next 10 years or probably in the next 15 years. And so there is a real need to make a reduction to the footprint. And also because that's what the finance system says. If we were to build a new school, the state's not going to let us build a new high school for 400 kids or 600 kids. There's a high minimum. But Treasurer Cook, if you have, there's a work group, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, happy to address. As we came into the first of the year, we had a work group, calendar year 25, that we had paused on as we had board leadership transition. That work group is being reconstituted. We had some work. We had some recommendations that we made right at the calendar year end. We have an RFP process that we are engaged in that I should receive from Dinsmore Legal Counsel targeted the end of this month. So we'll have more information to share at that point in time. But yes, there is a real estate work group. Mr. Trevino, myself, James Barnes. We had 2 board members and Densmore as we bucketized our properties, looked at what value can we begin to unlock, what discussions need to be had. No decisions have been made, nothing's been brought forward. The work group was really going through these channel checks to prioritize, look at what value we can begin to have discussions around. I anticipate once I get some of that feedback back from legal, again targeting this month, we'll have some ideas perhaps we can bring forward when the chair wants to prioritize that. And if I could, I was asked earlier, Mr. Chair, about that figure on that 035. I looked it up. It was $15 million for the salary and benefits fund for the transfer last year.
Okay.
May I? Sorry. What were you going to say? Are you saying?
Can I make a simple request? Treasurer Cook, I think like, here's a really good example. Brandon, I totally hear you. I know we have a lot of properties, but I think like a really good example to me is, what I'm really curious to learn is, could we put a pre-K and do like apartment buildings with a pre-K on the first floor, right? Like this is what I'm talking about, if like truly push the envelope to say like it is an active site so that we don't have to sell it. We have some sort of partnership.
The quick answer is yes. The technical answer is it's very complicated. And I say that because there's a provision in Ohio law where if we were to go out to a commercial real estate developer and go forward with that vision, we have to include language in the contract that says if Dr. Chapman needs that space tomorrow, we have the right to take that. So it really constricts the availability of capital dollars from the private investment community, because nobody wants to take that risk on, and then literally at the drop of a hat, we suddenly need that space and it goes poof. So there are other options we're exploring. I don't want to try to be evasive. I just don't have enough information yet from legal counsel, but there's some creative avenues, to your point, from a financing standpoint that I'm willing to explore. We're actively looking at. We just have to map those strategies out so we can check the compliance boxes and, again, make sure they make sense for the district. And I hope that we can filter those through this committee as we get clarity on those.
Yeah. Thank you for that information. I wanted just to comment on that. You know, something that I've learned engaging with the community is that that's important information for them to know, because a lot of people would come and say, well, why can't we use this money for that? I think a lot of people in our community are not aware that if we were to sell a building, that money is not able to be used to funding staff and student programming. And so, you know, our community has a lot of input and ideas that they want to provide that our district, like, we can do justice for ourselves by saying, you know, we just can't legally do a lot of these things that are great ideas, but just cannot be properly executed by law. So I just want to say, as a member of the community, that's important for our people to be aware of. And then I had a few questions, actually. So first, as we're talking about sale and use of those parcels, especially inactive sites, when we think about the valuation of those sites, are those, like, if they're an inactive site, is the valuation set right now, if we were to think about their value, is it set as if it was educational value or the highest potential use value? Does that question make sense?
Yes, great question.
Okay.
So we would explore commercial value at this point. There's a lot of ambiguity through legal counsel and Densmore. I've had these conversations on what constitutes that educational value. There's no formula for that right now.
Okay.
So we would obtain fair market value appraisals on our properties and then work backwards from there if we have to.
Okay.
Just let me jump in on that one, because I had a similar question. So remind me, you did that Kingswood Data Center example with the educational value versus highest and best use. The educational value is this correct? The educational value is what we would be forced to sell it at if we had to sell it at the educational value, and that's what we use when we say we have to sell to a charter school. That's what that means. Is that correct?
It does, and there's really no calculation out there that defines what that is. I mean, it's
Yeah,
very
how could you
industry
even-
practice on an appraisal, there's comparables, et cetera. There's nothing out there that we can point to. I mean, in respect to Mr. Trevino, that auditor's value could even be low with respect to educational value. So that is likely to be litigated at some point if that's encountered, because again, I think it's fair market value of our assets that we have.
I think is that under current law or proposed law? I think was the question. The educational value component. If we sell a property today, do we have to sell it for?
Proposed. Proposed.
Okay.
So
I think we're going to continue to face that challenge in these budget bills potentially along with other legislation, but that is proposed.
Right. And, there are risks like the budget bill, as you indicated, but as well as, we know we have a lame duck session in the future where we will have a change in the state's chief executive, and that may result in perhaps a change of legislation as well.
So if we are forced to sell a property, whether it's an active site or not, we don't immediately know what kind of valuation we would have to set that for sale at, because that number is so potentially arbitrary.
Questionable, yeah.
Yep. Right? So we can't even make an accurate projection of, if today this were to pass through and become law, we have this many sites that are at risk. So number one, we don't know whether it would meet that 60%, because 60% is kind of arbitrary to begin with, right? So we don't know what that 60% threshold is for each of these sites.
Or potentially changing at least.
The other thing we need to keep in mind is we can't just stick a for sale sign out in our properties.
Yeah.
There's a process that we have to go through. We have to offer it to charter non-pubs first.
Okay.
Doesn't mean they'll necessarily pay that price, and that's where that educational value component came in. At market value, that could be a game changer for the district because they might not have the capital to expend on that, even if we have to offer it to them. Then we would go to the auction process. If it doesn't sell at auction, then we can sell it outright. But there is a multi-tiered step process that we have to go through on disposition of real estate. Right now, we're still very much focused on market value until the legislature says otherwise.
Okay.
There was a lot of issues with respect to educational value because of outstanding bond debt, tax issues, et cetera. It got very, very complicated very, very quick. So I hope that helps. But we can't just stick a for sale sign out there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened with Brittenell?
I'm sorry.
We sold it to Charles School. What happened to the Brittenell building? So we sold it to charter school. We sold it to the Charles School, that Ohio Dominican conglomerate and all that. So what process did we do? Because that was about, I'd say about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that, but my assumption is since it went to a charter non-pub, it was offered and they took advantage of that offer at that time, but I certainly would reserve the right to be wrong.
I believe you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question too, related to the pricing. So when we talked about how when a building is sold, that cannot be used towards general funds. But if a facility is leased out, is that the same situation?
No. We could utilize, we get a little bit more creative with leases.
Okay.
But again, I think, yes, that's a revenue stream, but we have to look at it from the standpoint of, a lease payment coming in monthly isn't necessarily going to fix that budget deficit that we have.
No.
We would
Right.
certainly take the revenue stream. I think where the public gets concerned and confused is, and I understand it, if we were to sell a building or a plot of land for $30 or $40 or $50 million, they look at that, and I understand why, that would plug that general fund deficit. It does not. Those funds go into our permanent improvement to be utilized for capital expenditures. So that's the disconnect, because they'll see us sell something that's of substantial value, but it doesn't go to the general fund. So to your point, we'll continue to make sure we reiterate that as we have discussions ongoing, because it is a really important fact for the community.
Yeah, I think a lot of us look at that, a building is sold or a plot of land is sold, and well, why can't we pay for X,
Well,
Y,
and
Z
even
thing?
realistically, $3 million is one day of operating expenses in this district. And so, 270, you sell that, you maybe get yourself a couple days. So it's not doing what we needed to do if we could do it.
Based on how this discussion is going, I think it would be great, and maybe I can work with the superintendent or the treasurer's office on this, but at our next meeting, if we could carve out a kind of legal update and legal update and Q&A session that we can kind of all, okay. I think that'd be great. I don't know if it's Mr. Barnes or a team effort there, but that would be helpful, and kind of maybe part of that is walking us through the disposition process as it stands now, and then what is proposed, I guess.
Because I'm curious, for this building in particular, right? Do we have to offer this building to charter non-pubs?
Yes.
Yes.
Even though it's an administration?
Yes. Yes.
Any district facility.
Interesting.
Including vacant land.
Yes.
Correct.
I have a general, I have one other, kind of comment,
Please.
clarification too, I think I kind of want to link the balancing the entire facilities portfolio, right, the three legs there with kind of some of the facilities that we're closing and kind of what you're talking about of taking a chunk of 10 million off. I know I would find it very helpful if I could see the outstanding backlog for every single building. I think the public would also find it really helpful, right? Because I think when we talk about closing some of these schools, showing what the backlog is that we're then able to take off and showing where we can reallocate that money, I think will really help clarify for people.
The maintenance.
Yeah,
The
the deferred maintenance, right? And I think even maybe the planned maintenance, right? Because I think as we start to talk about these potential bills that are impacting us, or even the changes that we want to make, ignoring the law changes, I think having just that information clearly available, we're doing ourselves a disservice of not being really open and honest about the backlogs and how, moving some things around could really help then open up money in other ways, right? So.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. Okay, a couple more things. I don't know if we have IT here anymore, but I got kicked out of the Zoom, so if I have the ability, to let me back in, that would be great. Nice, okay, they're coming.
Community.
Can I ask one more question while we deal with that? How many buildings or facilities right now are under that potential under 60% utilization?
Good
We
question.
remember that too. Last year.
I do not have that at hand, but I'd be happy to provide that for the group next time.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
We had it when we were doing it last year, but the updated numbers.
I remember seeing that, yeah.
Can you remember when we were going out doing the consolidation stuff about what it was?
Not off the cuff, I don't want to misspeak, and we have, given some of the changes that we're putting in place, that's going to have an impact for the coming year as well. So I'd really prefer to go back and revisit and say, this is current state before we move forward.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. So we also have, in addition to the, list of actives and inactives in here, there are, in this building, there are 3 more schools that are currently occupied, but this is their last year. They're already in the process of moving out, and you guys jump in and correct me if I'm saying anything wrong here. So we have Broadley, Moeller, and Fairwood. So those are those part of our charge. We have to come up with a game plan with what to do with these. I would also argue, since one of our questions is, are there any additional properties the board needs to immediately consider? Some of these inactive sites, we might need to move to this list based on, kind of what I've learned today about the timeline. But I did just want to zoom in on those really quick. So they're the orange dots there. I don't know if you guys can see this. I can send this around. But you got the orange dots on your screen are the four. One of them is 270 East State. You have Broadley Moeller Elementary, down here, which is 10.71 acres, just on the southeast side there. You have Fairwood. On the east side, Fairwood has, oh man, this thing is getting all wonky on me. I'm sorry, it's not letting me see my notes. Okay, this thing's dying, but, so Fairwood and Broadley, together they are about 20 acres. They are, Moeller's a little, out, it's on the south side. It's in a neighborhood, but the other two are like right in the heart of neighborhoods. And I was gonna show what that looks like here if I can get this thing working. This is Fairwood, right along 70 there, and on the east side, south of the airport, you have Broadley. So those are the three that are kind of right in the on our chart. So we'll need to be thinking about these individually over the next few months. Not as much about how they move or where they are going, because that's already been decided. And Mr. Oldham has a team kind of putting that together, the move process. But we'll be talking about those kind of on an individual basis. Where are you gonna say, Brent?
I think because of the condition of these buildings, the reason we made the decision to move students out of them is because they are dilapidated and they have not had the appropriate level of investment children deserve. I think the appropriate, Brarian analysis from the team, of course, similar to how, the committee did last year with the demolitions. I think, demolition is something we should seriously consider for these sites because they're just.
We already voted on that.
Oh, we did vote to demolish? Oh, we did. I'm sorry. I can't, there's so many facilities.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect. The sites are empty. Barring that, then, if the enrollment patterns don't show that that area is prime for a school in the future, really what that is that's money locked up that could be liquidated to finance new school construction. But, that's an opportunity. But if we can't get something on the site that has a core educational use because of the way the law is structured, sitting on the parcel means it's not contributing to the core educational mission of the district. And I think we're going to continue to see legislation that seeks to rectify that coming out of the State House if we aren't more proactive.
Yeah, and I think I'm even seeing, even within our committee, just a little, kind of difference in ideals in terms of, is this property best kept as an asset, or is it best sold and those dollars returned to the facilities? And I think, I think in real estate, these are all like individual one-on-one decisions.
Right.
It'd be nice to have, we will never sell anything, or we're going to sell everything. But I think as we look at these on a one-on-one basis, different solutions will be possible for all of these. So I'd caution us about, kind of getting too, having too strong a stance on any way. And I think part of this effort will be kind of looking at each of these individually. I'll also, we're about done here. I know we've been having I think we've been focusing on all the hurdles that are in our way, but I'll tell you guys a couple, I guess, quick success stories. So I went to Douglas Elementary on the east side. About 5 years ago, the school board and district went through the process they went through this process. They were able to make it through and somehow get through all that and sell it to Rec and Parks. And that facility that was eventually turned into the Fran Ryan Center, this beautiful community center right in the middle of the neighborhood. Columbus City Schools was a huge part of that, and despite all these things that get in our way, we were able to figure that out. So it's possible to do really interesting stuff. Another story. This isn't school related, but it's a process I could see us taking with some of these. I worked with the United Way on their site, 360 Mound, their old office building. They wanted to get rid of it, but they wanted to and kind of move into a shared facility, but they wanted to uphold their mission of helping lower income folks. And what we did, they wanted to put affordable housing on that site. So what we ended up doing was putting out an RFP to who would give us the most money and put the most affordable housing on the site. And we talked to every affordable housing developer in town, got a lot of responses, and moved forward with it. So as I see us kind of having these ideas for each individual sites, that's kind of one path that we can take. We kind of make a decision on what we want for this site, and then we're going forth and figuring how to do it, and all the while strategically avoiding the State House, I guess. But it's been done, and we'll figure it out. So that is it, I think, for this committee. Does anyone else have? Well, I guess before I get to that, we have the calendar now. We will, we didn't get to vote on anything yet today, but we'll get there. And we will also be working on a work plan for the committee. So which I think is something of, a combination of an agenda for future committees and the stuff we'll be working on in between. Starting to put that together, going to work with probably each of you individually over the next month, and we'll revise and kind of think about this together. And then, is that something you would introduce formally, a work plan and vote on, or?
I don't have them vote on them, but show it to them, and
Okay.
It's a work plan, so it changes.
Okay.
And that work plan is drafted by the board as a whole?
It's drafted by the committee.
The committee, yeah.
Just us, okay.
Yeah, us, yeah.
Cool.
With that, anything else for the good of the order?
Just really quick for the new committee members, this committee did a lot of work the past year, and so there is a lot of resources and just deep dives back into more of the understanding of information. So going on to board docs and checking out, you can scroll through some of the past agendas, and then going to YouTube and finding the meetings. Also, I always had them link everything in board docs, like all the presentations that the staff put together and everything. So it should all be there, because it's complicated, as you heard, and we've had deep dives into school finance, and we've had deeper dives into our property. We've done a lot of that sort of thing. So if you are curious, some of it might need updated, but it's out there.
No, that's right, and I think one of the reasons I'm so glad you agreed to be on the board with us is to be able on the committee with us is to be able to kind of jump in where we may all be considering reinventing a wheel that has already been there, or so I appreciate that, board member right there. Okay, thank you again. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
If there are hearing no objections, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.